Ladies and gentlemen, we've got some good news. It is about time there be a decent show on the radar. Just after I was saying in another video that I'm making that you haven't seen that there are no good shows, no good movies coming out, nothing interesting, nothing to talk about, I have been proven wrong by a show that's actually trying to do a good job. Now I want to come out up front and say that I'm not yet condoning the show, as there's only a couple of episodes out at this point, and it looks like it's going to be like 8 episodes total, and so I just want to be clear. But we're talking about House of David, and House of David is a good Christian show so far. I am very impressed. It's going well. It's well directed, well put together, well taken care of, good storytelling, and a biblical narrative. So far, as I said, there's only 3 episodes out at the time of recording this, but there's a lot of information packed into those episodes. So the biggest thing that I want to say about the show is how there really is a scriptural basis for everything that they're doing so far. They are following the scriptural story of David in a really good way. And beyond that, it's essentially a swords and sandals epic that tells the story of David. So it's not like they're just trying to tell the story of David, skipping over all kinds of things, but it has the complex character-driven plot and narrative that you would look for in a typical swords and sandals-esque medieval war and conquest series. It's got action scenes, it's got fighting, it's got complex character motivations and betrayals and treachery and complicated stuff, and even has some amount of violence, and is very entertaining. I think everything is done tastefully so far and very well. The action scenes in particular are something that it's for sure the best action that we've ever had in a what you would call like a Christian show. Where we're actually focusing on the action scenes. There's effort put into fight choreography and things like that, which is unique as far as I'm aware. I cannot think of another what you would call Christian production off the top of my head that is focusing on fight choreography or anything like that in that way. And to me, that's a very positive thing. You know, we're not going to get off on the right foot if what your perspective is that we've got the Bible, and if you're going to make an adaptation of the Bible onto TV or film, that you want to follow it exactly, and you don't want to insert any moments whatsoever unless they are like heavily assumed or something like that into the script. I think that's pointless, because then what's the point of you doing an adaptation at all? If you want the Bible, then you read the Bible. But doing adaptive work is for other reasons. It's to investigate the story deeper. It's to look for connections. It's to draw in people who might have not been otherwise drawn in. There's so many reasons to make an adaptive storytelling, and this is the same conversation that we get into when we talk about The Chosen. If you want my thoughts about The Chosen, go watch my videos on The Chosen. There's plenty of those out there, and I think that this show so far is sitting in the same place as The Chosen. It's got probably a higher production quality. It looks really clean. It's put together by the brothers who did I Can Only Imagine and I Still Believe and The Jesus Revolution, which are all solid Christian movies, like good Christian movies. Critique or whatever critique. I'm not talking about them specifically in this video, but this one I think takes all the creative liberties in the correct way. You know that the Christian series is going to be good when it starts out with the disclaimer on the first screen that says, you know, this is an attempt to tell the historical narrative, but creative liberties were taken. Perfect. Chef's kiss. It's exactly what you want to see. And they do just a great job of it. Like the way that each of the characters is set up explains their motivations well, and then we spend scenes and time with each character. And really, these first 3 episodes are kind of a slow build. Like we get to spend a ton of time with each character and like flush out their motivations and their backgrounds, and it feels like a true to narrative TV show that's pacing itself out for a 10 episodes or 8 episode series in this instance. And I think that's just so strong. I think if you're going to do the storytelling, you don't have to change it because it's a biblical story. You're using a storytelling mode, the mode of like a mini series. I guess it's not technically a mini series, but like a short, whatever you would call like the Netflix era of TV series now that are like 8 episodes, maybe 10 episodes, TV shows, and where you have like 40 to 50 minutes per episode to kind of tell a story. So they fit it into that formula, and it's excellent. It's well put together. The actors are incredible. Some of them are recognizable, and so far the acting is phenomenal. The plot details are phenomenal. There's a lot of good. I want to address bad because people are always going to have it, especially Christians who like to be like extra picky about all this stuff. As far as not following scripture, I really cannot think of anything substantial. Like, they add some character motivation stuff that is obviously outside the realm of what we know in scripture, where we're just not sure, and it could be the case. And so my usual thing that I say when we're talking about The Chosen is if they're including a variable that could very well, very possibly have been the case, then they're within the confines of where I would want them to be. And in this instance, they are including only things that I think very well could be the case potentially. I guess I should say before we go further that I'm not going to do any heavy spoilers. I won't do super heavy spoilers for anything past the first 2 episodes, say. I'm not even going to say what happens, but like if you read the Bible, there's really nothing big other than what I've said. And we're still talking about character setup here, so there's like hardly anything to spoil as far as getting down the line. And I think it's important to talk about the things in the show. So if you don't want to hear anything about the show, then just know that my review is good. And right now I'm getting into specific details. So they choose to make David a bastard child, essentially, of a later mother. So his brothers don't have the same mother as him. And then his mother like dies in, I don't want to give too many spoilers. It's not a spoiler that his mother's dead because that starts like right out in the series, but we'll just say that his mother dies, and then that is an important part of his character motivation. But aside from that, there's almost like no added content. Like they add this fight scene essentially in the 2nd episode that is, I mean, it's not related to anything. Like it has very little to do with the plot other than showcasing sort of his relationship with his brother and setting up kind of the culture between the Israelites and the Philistines and stuff like that, which I think they're also setting up really well. And so they've just added like a fight scene in there, like some action that would not be present. And they've done that a couple times, you know, making it sort of interesting with action, because it's obviously meant to be an action series. Like I said, it's kind of a swords and sandals, you know, series essentially. And so there's a heavy focus on action, and there's action scenes injected in there. And most of them are accurate. Most of them are like battle sequences that you would assume to find if you were reading through the events of the Bible. But some of them are added in. Like some of them are just details of like they make up this little side arc where David and his brother go somewhere and they encounter some Philistines and they have to fight them. And so that's just a little side tangent that they go on, and there's a fight scene there, and it's nice and it's enjoyable. It's an enjoyable fight scene, and it's cool, and it doesn't hurt or help the plot. I mean, it helps the plot of the show. It doesn't hinder or help the plot of Scripture, for example. And so again, I think it's completely non-problematic, and actually I see it as positive, because I think that the choice to have these scenes lend themselves to the way they're telling the story, and they do not contradict Scripture. And I feel like that's the last that I need to say on that. The other thing that's really awesome about the show is it kind of sets itself up as like a mini mystery. For people who aren't like super familiar with the Bible, I think it's going to be a really effective mystery about I'll just say about the giants and the Nephilim, because it sets that up like right away in the 1st episode, and it's tying that in with Goliath. And that is all. I feel like some people are going to accuse it of being a little bit too mystic, but that's, I think, just a failure of the Christian tradition. It is very much the case that in 1st and 2nd Samuel, we see David killing not only Goliath, but the family of Goliath. And the family of Goliath is the last of the Anakim, which are already mentioned in the show in episode 2, by the way. So you can tell they've done their homework. The Anakim are the sons of Anak, who was one of the Nephilim, who are the giants. And so we're encountering a show here that's not afraid to get into the spiritual worldview the way that I think it should be. I think that the Sethite argument for the Nephilim are very silly. I just think it's ignorant of the spiritual tradition around that. Whatever, if you don't agree with that, then you're going to find this show to be heretical. But it clearly examines the idea that the Anakim and the Rephaim are descendants of the Nephilim and are giants and are hunted by David, and they're using that as an important plot detail, which it is. It is an important plot detail, and I can go into detail. I think it would be interesting to make another episode on that, like explaining some of those details. For the time being, I'm going to have an article linked in the description. An article in Knowing Scripture by Zachary Garris, and I think it sums up the points really well. If you want more detail, you should read Michael Heiser, as I'm always recommending, but I think Zachary Garris in this instance sums it up really well, and he has kind of like a succinct view of the Nephilim and the giants through to Goliath in 1st and 2nd Samuel. So I think that it's really effective if you're not understanding all that stuff, or not confident about the Christian tradition, or you don't remember there being giants in the story of David. That's just because when we tell it, we kind of leave out these things. And in modern scholarship, they're very afraid of the whole spiritual thing, and they've neglected the spiritual, and the weird approach to angels, demons, and Nephilim is super neglected in modern theology and scholarship. And that's the faults of scholars alone, who think that everything now has to fit in their tiny evidence-based explainable worldview, and spiritual stuff to them they don't know how to explain. So to make myself clear, I very much believe in it, and there has been absolutely nothing in these first couple episodes to contradict any theology that I have seen. And so I have high hopes for this series. It's been very enjoyable, and I hope that it will continue to be very enjoyable. The way that it's setting up the characters, I think, is exceptional. And I think that is what I'm most looking forward to, is I want to see if they can achieve those character moments, that character building and depth through the story of David, which is already an excellent story, but the way that they're telling it as a short series is just super well done. So far, I'm saying this because I've seen some positive and negative, but mostly positive. I've seen a mostly positive reception to this show so far. I've seen it, you know, sort of condoned by people in Christian spaces. Not a ton of people are talking about it yet, which is part of why I wanted to make this video. I want it to be prominent because I think this is a good thing. I think we've seen, if anybody's been following what's going on with The Chosen recently, obviously they've also been acquired by Prime Video. And it's interesting that Prime Video has a department of Christian people who are focusing on propagating Christian content. And I see that in a very positive light. Everybody's going to see it in one way or another. They're going to say whatever, but I think that the guts of Amazon to admit that there's a large audience out there for Christian entertainment and be willing to pursue it is a positive thing. And so I see it as a positive thing that they're making this series, and it is a positive thing that they're going to be the major distributor of The Chosen going forward. I think that both of those things are good things and okay things. And maybe it would be a good idea to make a separate video on that topic as well, talking about what's going on with The Chosen and stuff. But as I said, this is positive. This is a good show. It's looking really good, and I can't wait to make a full review of it as it goes on. Maybe I'll talk about each episode as it comes out. I don't know if it's, I think it is going to be weekly now at this point or something like that. So if story beats come up, or if something interesting comes up, or if people have questions and people watch this video and want to know more about certain details, I'll be talking about them. Maybe it would be interesting to do a really specific episode deep dive, but for now I wanted to give just this condemnation video and say, so far, I condone this series as a Christian series and as an entertainment series in general. I think it's super good. I saw people in the reviews who were not Christian, but were just people who really like historical drama, and those are the type of people that this show can hopefully attract and then pique the interest of. You know, they might say, oh, I've never heard about giants in the Bible. You know, is that a real thing? Is there's a King David that was fighting giants? And then, you know, they end up reading the Bible or something to learn more about it, or they end up researching this stuff. And I think that, you know, any carrot on a stick is positive in this instance. As long as they're not trying to teach corrupt doctrines or screw with anything screwy, I think we're going to be in a really good place. And it looks that way to me. So I'm really excited. How did you enjoy House of David? Have you watched it yet? Have you binged it? Do you have concerns? Are you concerned about shortcomings and not sure whether you should? I'd be happy to talk with you about it, so just let me know. But I am really excited to see where this show is going, and I'm really excited for the future of Christian storytelling if this continues to be the case. If you have been, thank you for watching. This has been Credence Questions. I would appreciate if you take the time to like, subscribe, comment, follow along with the channel. If you found this interesting and you want to see more content like this, please just let me know below. Reach out to me in my form. It's under the description of every video. And please tune in for more. Thank you, and I hope you have a good one.